So, came up with the most creative medical idea in the whole entire universe that will snap people out of an Acomma if they are in a coma. But my theories and experiments, science experiments for the ultimate good would need to be conducted by professional and knowledgeable doctors, nurses, and I see that it can be the information about these experiments with the high percentile of the one that is in a coma to snap out of it. And most people, even if it's family, friends, whoever, they would most likely give consent for doctors and nurses to, like, the go ahead. They will give or offer or provide the go ahead. Like, go ahead and do it. Whatever. I'm thinking most people say whatever it takes, just do it. That type of thing. And I'm thinking about a center point. However you want to look at that center point, let's think about it like an overview. And you have the center, like the center of a rectangle, inside of a rectangle. That center point will be the head of the patient. So, or the body of the patient. It doesn't really matter. And you would need to provide a radius. That rectangle will be a radius. So, or you can think about it like a circle with the patient in the center. Okay? All I'm thinking about is a radius. And I'm thinking a surround sound all the way around without the patient ever knowing about this information. Without the patient ever knowing and understanding about a surround sound. That surrounds them. They can't be aware that that is surrounding them. So if there's other doctors that go in there and talk about it, it could throw off the whole experiment. So these people have their eyes closed and they can't really snap out of the coma. And this could be tested for up to or at least a quarter of a year. If the patient does not snap out of it, then half of a year. If the patient does not snap out of that, then up to or longer than a year. But I strongly believe that dependent on how long a particular patient has been in a coma for, would depend on the prolonged activity of the experiments that would need to be conducted, since they will take time and a steady progression, and also the snapping out of the coma effect as it progresses and becomes more and more rapid. Rapid in the form of annoying sounds. So remember, the patient is in the center. There's a radius. So there's a surround sound. In the back, right behind them, they could hear, as in one experiment, water drops. And this will be super, super prolonged. The sequence will be prolonged. Maybe every hour. So the patient's thinking, whoa, what's going on? Right, behind me. What is that sound? What is that sound? So, whatever they're thinking about, they're in a coma. And then they hear the water drop. Boom. So, what is that? What is that doing? Think about it. What is it doing? It's distracting what their brain pattern and bringing them to life, where they're like, what the fuck is that sound? They're going to be like, what is that sound? And the whole science experiment here will be to bring about the frustration to snap them out of a coma into reality, into, you know, being awake, being responsive, and also, I believe strongly in monitoring and providing climate control for each patient, especially under these conditions or these experiments, for them to have a room temperature um, at all times, something warm, nothing cold, because cold can freeze people up. So always keeping the patient warm, and if the patient gets too hot, cooling the body down. Too cold, always bringing that temperature up to keep the patient warm. Okay, so that's besides the point though. That's an automatic machine keeping the patient at the desired temperature at all times. Now the sound effects will get more and more intense, but at this point, the people that are aware of the science experiments that are taking place, I'm thinking that they shouldn't be made aware that some of these experiments will result and can result in some form of trauma, and you know, it can frighten them. um Adrenaline levels can go or spike up, and also and also this is obviously not guaranteed, obviously, but if the patient, and I'm not doubting, I'm just doubting because other people are doubting. That's fucking why. But I seen this in my mind, okay? And the main thing is not to allow the patient to wake up in an ordinary, understandable, or understanding type of environment. Don't allow them to wake up in a hospital, even if they are in a hospital. So you have to allow them to wake up, say, in an environment, in an artificial environment. So they wake up, for instance, in this example, and they're like in a prison cell. and they wake up like, what the fuck? Because the main thing here is not to allow them to wake up and then look at their surroundings and be like, oh, I'm in a safe place, and fall back to sleep. Or, oh, I'm just like in the room. Oh, everything's okay. No, that's where you guys fuck up. Because if they do wake up, you don't want them to go back to sleep. You want them to trigger that survival mode. Like, oh shit, where the fuck am I at? I can't go to sleep. I have to stay awake. I have to stay up. I'm not safe. So, they have to wake up. They have to force themselves to get up or else. Right? So that's the whole reason for these experiments, is to snap them out of the coma into reality in the state that we are. Well, as far as I know, as humans, anyways, um, so, okay, so, like some of the other experiments, as they slowly and steadily start growing and growing, will be like maybe like a sound effect of an object moving around the patient as they're in the center point, but something scary. So they're sleeping, or they have their eyes closed, right? And there's like something moving around them. Maybe even like, some wind blowing at them. So they're like, they can get the chills and freak the fuck out. That's why I'm saying this could result in some form of trauma, of some form of trauma abuse mentally, and it could spike up the frightening levels. But the whole objective, like I said, is to snap the patient out of a coma into reality. So it's not to frighten them at all. It's to snap them out and to bring them into this like survival mode where they don't want to continue sleeping, and their mind is telling them not to be in that state, but to come out of that state. And just woke up. So, obviously it would require someone that has suffered the type of trauma that I have, and understanding the whole process of hearing voices and fighting mental voices. And it's like an experiment. And for me, personally, I'm thankful for it. I didn't understand it, but it feels like this whole process of me hearing voices and stuff has somehow revived me, or has woken me up And I'm saying this seriously, and like I'm always constantly hearing voices, but my mind is disregarding that fact, even though I've shared it with people. They seem like they understand, but at the same time, they can't do anything about it. And I've heard other people, you know, going through the same process. And I mean, what can we do? We can't really do anything. It's just like, dang, that sucks. That type of thing. Like, pray about it. Like, that type of thing, that sort of thing. But anyways, regardless of all that, I believe it has matured me. I believe that it has allowed me to grow. I believe that it brought me from a state of thinking that everything is funny to a state that is more serious. So it's obviously allowing me to grow and mature. All right. So, and I'm not saying that having fun and joking around is not okay, because we all understand that it's okay. But sometimes I would get carried away with some of my jokes, and I still do, because what can I say? I don't give a fuck. As an example, but I do give a fuck, or else I wouldn't be like, here sharing this whole process, this whole video idea with everyone. Well, specifically, no, especially for the medical industry. And I'm thinking that it would have to be performed performed by professionals. Maybe by or for a client that has recently been in a coma, and then working your way to a more prolonged patient that has been in a coma, say for a number of years, right? So, because these will be elementary studies, and therefore, since they are elementary studies, you don't want to find out later on that you were doing it all the wrong way, or you messed up somewhere in the studies, and if you guys would have done it this way instead of this other way, it could have woken the patient up. But in the result of you guys not doing it this way or this other way, it fucked up the whole process and the whole experiment. So, starting off with someone that's like freshly in a coma, and starting the whole process. And the main thing here is to introduce new sound frequencies, new not frequencies like where it's going to fucking annoy everyone, but something that's going to grab someone's attention. So even that like a grinder, that's like having contact, right, with the grinder on the ground or on something. Me, 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 me. The engine. Me, me. So they're gonna be like, "What the fuck is that noise?" And that instance when the brain is alerted of that sound and wondering what that sound is what we are after. And that is what's going to snap the patient in a coma out of a coma into reality. This information shouldn't be shared or be spoken about anywhere near the patient. The patient cannot be made aware of these studies whatsoever, or else it can introduce new problems which we don't want because we don't know how to troubleshoot them yet. So for a smoother, better experiment, we would need to just do those mild, low, trauma-free sounds and trips, not to frighten or freak the patient out too much. So it's going to get so intense that it will feel like this person is like in a nightmare or like some exorcist type of shit. Like, what the fuck is going on? But that's the main thing. And I hope that I'm not losing anyone here because this is very important. And it shouldn't just start from 0 to, like they say, 100. It should be a steady, slow pace and growth. That's why I say these experiments can take up to, quarter, half a year or longer, depending on the state of the patient, how long the patient has been in a coma, and a bunch of other factors. So I understand that a lot of studies and experiments have been conducted in the past in regards to someone being in a coma, right? So this approach will just be and become a new approach, and with a lot of a lot of else ifs, but nevertheless recording and documenting every single one of them, so the computer can know in the future how to conduct any and every type of case of someone that might fall into or fall into a coma without the possibility or the chances of getting out of that state of being, except through this approach that I'm speaking about and these experiments to bring them and snap them into reality. So every single detail is important. It's vital because we're talking about code. We're talking about a script. We're talking about the computer handling these cases for the future. This is not a business to make money. This is medical science experiments, and they should be treated as such. Because I can see many people out there with loved ones that are in the hospital because of the problem of being in this Acomma state, and who knows for how long. And their only concern is for their loved one to snap out of that state. Of that state and coming into reality. So it doesn't matter about money. It doesn't matter about any of that. Their main concern is, okay, let's you know let's work on this, and like, yes, I give you my full consent to do this, but also in an understanding way where